Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson, a World Alternative Media here, and of course I'm joined by author and economic analyst here at WAM, John Sneisen. And John, you wanted to give everybody a bit of an update on Venezuela, because of course we talked about Venezuela a few months ago, and it's just blown up. I mean, the hyperinflation is creating bread lines, and it's an absolute state of emergency over there.
Yeah. Things have gone bad quite quickly, actually, and this is what happens when a currency falters. It goes really fast from okay to horrible. And that is what we're seeing in Venezuela right now. There's been looting. There was recent videos up on the internet about 5,000 something people looting a shopping center, a grocery store, because there's basically no food left. Because of all the issues with the Venezuelan dollar being so worthless, nobody from the outside really want that Venezuelan dollar. So it's very hard for them to get any groceries, any supplies into Venezuela to their centrally planned economy. And this is what happens every time when it's a horrible inflation in a country. There's that is just gaining momentum because there's nobody wanting to deal with you with your worthless currency. Now, IMF predicted like this year, actually, the inflation to 1,642 now. It's very hard to see what the actual numbers are right now because there's been declared a state of emergency, and who knows actually the real numbers. And of course the government's numbers that they just issued for about 6 months ago is 180%, which is like even far below the 500 last year that IMF said, and Lagarde.
Which just to put in perspective, Venezuela is the same country that for generations, pretty much, socialists have claimed is the utopia, an example of how socialism works, and now it's becoming an example of why it doesn't, because we're seeing an absolute collapse of society here, and it's more than any of us could even have predicted.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that we had several people that was very well known that was out on RT and so on, and saying how great Chavez was, and Maduro, how Chavez brought the gold back. Well, now Maduro is selling the gold to even have any money at all. So that should just give you a little bit of an awakening to these hardcore socialist / communist countries and people that believe that central planning and central control works, because it clearly doesn't. The government is not supposed to control people. We are supposed to control if there's any or little government whatsoever in the country.
Yeah, I've never actually heard of people trying to escape a free market country. I've never seen people climbing through barbed wire or swimming through a gulf in order to escape a free market country.
Yeah, it's the history is not written with people trying to get away from places where there's very little government.
Because it's the absolute lack of totalitarianism. It is freedom to have free markets. Literally, it's right in the word.
Yeah, and what just happened in Venezuela, of course, they declared a state of emergency or martial law here. And this should be a warning to all of you guys out there that think that, this will never happen here. Well, I think Venezuela is just a predecessor of what could happen here. I'll just read a quick excerpt from a news article here that comes out of, let's see now, Vice News, actually, from Canada. A week ago, resident of the poor areas of Venezuela, capital Caracas, woke up to find soldiers everywhere, dressed in black helmets, military fatigues, and bulletproof jackets. A fleet of soldiers on 400 motorcycles flew through narrow, crumbling streets while supported by trucks and 2 helicopters. They set up street checkpoints and positioned themselves on rooftops to monitor the neighborhoods, while officers scoured alleys and houses holding heavy weaponry. So there you go, like they're actually going in and grabbing the guns. And then they have, of course, the control, because now when nobody's guns, well, the state and Maduro,
they have the upper hand. And I mean, think of it this way: they destroy the economy, they create a bunch of debt slaves, then they take the weapons away from everybody. Then there's not even toilet paper in the stores. They are basically running out of all food. There's bread lines, and then what happens next? Well, the people tend to either bow down to government and ask for help and be completely enslaved, or they start a revolution and they rise up against the government.
Yeah, and that's why they're trying to get the guns, because they're super afraid now that they're saying like, oh, the United States is going to try to stage a coup d'etat.
They should be afraid.
Which could actually be the case, because the United States, and I'm going to get into it right away, but I got to talk about two more things here. Also, one of the biggest, actually, it was a free market, it was a pro-free market company anyways, was the largest bear provider. Now they ceased production last month because their worthless Venezuelan bolivars Fuerte is not going to buy them anything, so they can't get the supplies to make the bear and so on. And here in Canada, if we had this issue with bear, I'm telling you there would be riots in the streets, because Canadians love their bear. Now we're gonna go into also the state of emergency and when they declared it. The government just implements this to get complete control and be able to do whatever it takes to force people into submission. Now, Venezuela has officially declared a state of emergency, given the government wide-ranging powers to combat its deep economic crisis. The new decree allows Venezuelan army to distribute and sell food. The army is supposed to distribute and sell food? Like, this is insanity, guys. So we should just bow down to the big... should the Canadian government just get into power here together with the government and then just give us food because we are not able to get our own food? How about being self-sufficient, guys, and actually having your own food?
But that's the number one thing, though. They have worked so hard to create a culture of absolute dependence that we've gotten to this point, and now people aren't able to take care of themselves because they have for so long counted on government to do everything for them and take care of them and, be their nanny and be their police and, be their absolute administrator of every single thought that comes to their mind. They have to look to government. And I'd like to, even in the United States or Canada, ask everybody, name one thing outside of your thoughts that isn't regulated by government. And don't say sleep. I said sleep too. And look at the tag on your pillow and tell me that you're not being regulated even when you sleep. This is just absolute dependency on government, and it's exactly what the globalists worldwide have been working towards.
Of course they are. Like they want to implement a big global government, and this is just the first stages of trying to get people towards that communist or big state. Which you're seeing in Europe, for example. Europe is a good example, but now it's starting to fall apart because people don't like to get governed and being put down by others. People want to be free. Like we're born free individuals when we were born, and our thoughts, when our thoughts actually are getting stopped from coming into fruition and being able to speak what we feel, well, things are going to start breaking apart.
Yeah. The government doesn't give us our freedom. We emanate that freedom. It comes from within. The government doesn't give freedoms. They can try and take them away, unfortunately, but they cannot give us freedoms. Don't look for government for rights. Your rights are intrinsic within you. And you should always be fighting for that. And of course, at a global scale, we are looking at the potential of a global economic collapse coming very soon. And Venezuela and all these other countries that their economies are crashing. This leads to one thing: the implementation of an eventual world currency, which basically every expert we've spoken to chronicles quite deeply and talks about how they are going to implement this. And I mean, the question is a global economic collapse going to happen tomorrow, next week, next month, 5 years from now? We can't predict exactly the moment that it's going to happen, but we know it's going to happen. And when things are inevitable, we need to take caution. We need to heed the warning, and we need to do everything in our power to keep ourselves safe, to learn independence, to learn how to, get our own food, have shelter, have sound money, and, to be able to work through commerce with your fellow neighbor without violence and coercion.
Oh yeah, totally. And this is another thing. Like, I'm gonna go into one more article here before we're done here. And this is actually not even an article. It's an executive order from the U.S. government that came out last year, stating that President Obama today issued a new executive order declaring a national emergency with respect to unusual and extraordinary threat to the national security and foreign policy of the United States posed by the situation in Venezuela. The targeted sanctions in this executive order implement the Venezuelan defense and human rights and civil Society Act of 2014, which the president signed on December 18th, 2014, and also go beyond the requirements of this legislation. Now, what is interesting here, they don't talk about it at all, and they're talking about sanctioning different people and the Venezuelan government from like fleeing the country and so on. But there's a way bigger thing here, and this is why banks like Citibank and other big banks in the United States are scared shitless, is because if you go to em.cbonds.com and under countries, and then you go to the Venezuelan bond issues, you would see why the executive order came out. Now, in US dollar, they issued over 45 issues of bonds. Now, all those issues combined totals $77.5 billion. Now, think about, on top of that, of course, you got maybe 10 times more derivatives, maybe even more. And think about what will happen when Venezuela actually defaults on that debt. Now, Venezuela has the lowest credit rating in the world right now. And of course, the credit rating agencies haven't rated them, as bankrupt, which they are. But they ranged them, like, for example, S&P, they ranged them at extremely speculative. And Fitch rated them as substantial risk. Now, let's see here. We also got Moody's have them as in default with little prospect to recovery. Now, actually, there was one. Moody's actually says that they're in default, but nobody's talking about it. Nobody's saying that Venezuela is bankrupt. These banks, like Citibanks and others, they're borrowed money to Venezuela. They're not going to get that money back. So now they're looking who's going to bail Venezuela out, like they're doing in Greece right now. They're bailing Greece out. No, they're not bailing Greece out or Venezuela out. They're actually bailing the banks in the European Union for Greece, and then the American banks here in North America, because these banks have made horrible loans. They made a crap load of money. Some were bragging about 600+% that they made on these loans. But all it comes down to, it's just crooked banks again that knew that they were gonna be able to be bailed out because they're too big to fail. Now they've just gone in all in on $77 billion worth of debt, which is actually bigger than the debt on the oil fracking in the United States. There's debt bubbles everywhere, and it's insanity. Just these big banks, they're gonna really get hit hard soon, and we're seeing it right now in stock markets. Bank stocks are down, and they're acting the same way as they did in 2008. There is a market crash coming very soon. We can't predict, of course, the exact date, but we can predict that it's very, very, very soon.
And it comes without saying when we're talking about people printing, or central banks printing money out of thin air, and they're racking up debt, they're racking up inflation. And as we've spoken of so many times before here at WHAM, is that every single society that's ever printed money out of thin air, I mean, we're going back to 1024 AD with China, which 1000th anniversary coming up right away, all paper money eventually reverts to its natural value of zero. It always has, it always will, and there's no difference with this or anything else. And this is absolute monetary fraud against every individual that's living in these countries, because it's put into law, put into legislation, forced on the individual. And in most cases, it's private central banks, but all the same, it's still people in their markets being completely manipulated and enforced by government in a fraudulent Ponzi scheme manner that ends up creating a nation of debt slaves and ends up creating an absolute culture of servitude to the government. And, it's a people that hurt the most. The big banks, this debt, all this kind of stuff that's happening, it works out pretty well in the long run for the central bankers. So,
well, hey, Josh, I think we should go out with a big bang. Our 1024 anniversary, we're getting up to 1,000 year. How about a global fiat meltdown honor, the 1,000-year anniversary?
You mean we might actually learn a lesson after 1,000 years? I don't know. Maybe.
Well, you and me are definitely have learned the lessons by reading history books, but I don't know if these politicians and these greedy bastards that sit on top of the monetary system understands it. I think they're just blindsided by what they were born into. And again, guys, look at what we were talking about in Venezuela. What protects you? Well, it's keep food, keep water, keep your guns, be protected, and have your gold and silver, because that is the number one. Look at the riots and everything happening. People are just trying to get food and everything, but they can't get it. So try to keep that. Like, it's so important to be independent of a government when you have an implosion. So Venezuela, we should really study that and understand that, because it's coming here, guys. And there's no doubt in my mind that it's coming here. So we better be prepared for the time when it's coming.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much, John. Of course, one of our main goals is to bring you guys information. Of course, it's our opinions, but we want to bring you information in order to make sure that you can keep yourself and your family insured and safe in the event of an economic collapse, because we know it's inevitable, as we've spoken about. So thank you, John. We will come at you with much more on this issue and globally, because, of course, this is a global issue. Venezuela is just one of the examples of many. So thank you very much, and we will be back soon. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter at World Alternative Media. Of course, at worldalternativemedia.com. This is Sigurdson, John Sneisen, signing out. Find the truth, be the change.